What's good, everyone? In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about how to simplify square roots with variables. And to do that, we need to understand that we are dividing our exponent by the root. And when we do not see the root in the radical, we should know that the root is 2. So basically, to simplify, we're trying to pull out two x's. We're dividing by 2. So x squared simplifies to just x. And that's because when we write this out, right, we have radical x times radical x. We want to be able to pull out a pair of x's, right, to count as 1. So when I pull out both of these x's, this just turns out to be x, right? But let's say we have a higher exponent. So we have radical x to the fourth power. So what we're basically saying here is we have radical x times radical x times radical x times radical x. And to simplify this, we have to be able to pull out two x's per pair. So if I notice here goes my first pair of 2, x to the first power. And here goes my second pair of 2, x to the second power. So radical x to the fourth power simplifies to x squared. And if you think about it, right, if we divided the exponent 4 by 2, we would have got x to the second power. But what if in the problem we have a odd exponent? So we had radical x to the fifth power. We cannot divide 5 by 2 evenly, but what we can do is split it. So let's write this out. So when we write this out, we have x times x times x times x times x, right? Radical x to the fifth power. And every 2 consists of one pair. So that's our first pair. This is our second pair. But what happens to this last x by itself? So to finish this problem off, what we're going to do is we're going to pull out x squared because we have 2 pairs, right? So that's x to the second power. And anything that's left over is going to stay under the radical. So radical x to the fifth power, once we simplify, will be x squared times radical x. But what about a problem now where we have a coefficient added in? So in our next problem, we have radical 9k to the 10th power. So luckily for us, 9 is a perfect square, right? And its square root is 3. So once we try to simplify this, we're going to get 3, right? And then let's think about k to the 10th power, right? Radical k to the 10th power. K is an even number, so once we divide it by the root of 2, we're going to simplify this to 3k to the 5th power. Okay? But what if our coefficient, or what if it's not a perfect square? So in the problem, we had radical 40x to the 19th power, right? So we know that 40 is not a perfect square. So how do we go about breaking this down? What we want to do, let's focus on the number part. So we know that we could have radical 4 times radical 10, right? And I'm looking at my exponent and I notice that it's an odd number. So the best thing to do is to split it. We're going to keep the highest even exponent with the perfect square. So we're going to put 4x to the 18th power, right? That's the highest even number before 19. And then we're going to keep the other x, the other single x, with the imperfect square radical 10. So now when we come to simplify, 4x to the 18th power, is going to simplify to 2 because 4 is a perfect square. Square root is 2. And then x to the 18th. Once we divide 18 by 2, we're going to have x to the ninth and radical 10x. We don't have two x's to pull out, right? So it is going to stay the same, and radical 10 cannot be broken down anymore. So this is going to stay the same, right? All right. So in our next problem, what if we have a problem where there's more than one variable? So in our next problem, we have radical. Well, let's start off. I'm sorry. We have 4 times radical 180 xy to the fourth. So we're going to start off focusing on what perfect square goes into 180. And if I'm not mistaken, we have radical 36 times radical 5. So we started off and we got the numbers that go into 180. Now let's focus on our variables. So I noticed that we only have 1x. We can't divide 1 by the root of 2 and get a whole number, right? Right. So we're going to put this x with 5 because 5 is not a perfect square. We're not going to be able to break that down anymore. And then y to the fourth, because we have an exponent of 4, that's an even number. We're going to keep that with the square root. So now we have 36y to the fourth, right? And at this point, guys, we can't simplify radical 5x. So I'm just going to bring it down, right? Let's bring that down. And let's make sure we bring our 4 down because we're going to have to multiply that by what we simplify radical 36 y to the fourth. All right. So we're going to bring 4 down one more time. And then now this radical 36, right? 36, the square root is 6. And y to the fourth. If we divide 4 by 2, we're going to get y squared. And then we're going to put times radical 5. Now at this step, what we need to do is focus on what's outside of the radical. So I'm going to multiply 4 times 6y squared. And once we do that, we're going to get 24y to the second power. And because we cannot break down radical 5x anymore, we're going to bring it down next to it. So when you got